So we're in the thick of winter here in Missoula, Montana, so I thought it was time to get fat.
Hey, hey, hey! It's fun!
That's right, today's bike review is going to be a fat bike. We're going to take a look at the 2016 Kona WO. Find out what I like and dislike about it in this video. Welcome back, Pathless Peddlers, and if you're new to the channel, if you're interested in things like bike touring, bike packing, gravel riding, and bike fishing, then definitely subscribe. This channel is for you. So before I jump into the review, I really want to give a big thanks to the folks over at Missoula Bicycle Works that made this review possible. They let me take out one of their Kona fat bikes in their rental fleet so I could ride around for a couple days and let you guys know what I think about it. So if you live in Missoula or are passing through during the winter or summer, definitely stop by their shop. So the Kona WO is Kona's only fat bike. There's a different variation with a front suspension fork called the Kona WO. But for this review, we're going to take a look at just the plain Jane Kona WO. So this is their 2016 model, and from what I've heard from the folks at the shop, that not a whole lot has really changed in terms of geometry. So this review should stand for the 2017 and presumably the 2018 model as well, with only a big change being the components. So speaking of components, this bike was originally a 2x drivetrain from the factory, but the folks at Missoula Bike Works changed it to a 1x, and it works great. I mean, given the speeds that you're going to be potentially going on a fat bike, then you definitely have a high enough gear if you can even spin the bike up that fast, and you have the really low gear that you'll need to crawl over rocks and snow and sand and all that other stuff. The bike is outfitted with some hydraulic Shimano disc brakes, which is great for, one finger stopping power in all weather conditions. And for tires, it has the Schwalbe jumbo gems that measure in at 4.8 inches. So a nice big fat tire. The frame and fork itself is made out of aluminum, so no carbon bits. The fork has no braze-ons for anything cages or anything like that, but it does have some mounting points for a rear rack. So I do have a confession to make that this is my first fat biking experience in the snow. I have ridden a fat bike before on the beach, but it's really quite a different experience. But one thing that is common between both snow riding and riding on the sand is that even though it looks like you can ride over everything, that is far from the truth. There's definitely conditions that are more optimal for riding a fat bike on. So you need to find the surface that's fairly packed down or has frozen over and has some kind of structure to it. For me, I ran the tires at initially at about 7 psi, then dropped it down to around 6 or 5. I could have gone a little bit lower, but I was really kind of paranoid of getting a flat while I was out there since it is so cold. But generally at those PSIs, it worked fairly well. It gave me good traction in reasonably solidish snow. I would sink in on the lightest powder snow, but for most situations where you could actually ride, I was able to ride in. So that's it for kind of the general overview of the bike. I'm going to jump into things I like and dislike about the Kona WO. So the first big like is actually how the bike handles. Looking at the WO or looking at any fat bike, you would assume that it would be really slow to steer, kind of a bear to maneuver through tight quarters. But I actually found the front end geometry of the WO to be surprisingly light feeling. So even though the numbers are very similar to other fat bikes, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's the trail, the head angle, but the front end didn't need a lot of heavy input to turn the bike. And in effect, it made the bike feel more nimble and playful than what I would have expected just by looking at the bike. So given that, I really see the Kona WO as actually a 4-season bike. It's a bike that, yes, you can trudge through snow, but it would probably also be really fun on dry trails when there's no snow on the ground. I didn't get to test this. Maybe I'll get a chance to do a longer term review, but my initial intuition is that because of the lighter steering in the front, that it's going to be a fun bike on any trail, regardless of whether it has snow or not. Another big like is that it does have some mounting points for a rack. So if you're going to use this as a winter commuter or to go on a bike tour, off-road bike tour, then you do have some rack mounting options to carry your gear. Another big like is the componentry on the bike. The hydraulic disc brakes worked really well. The stock saddle and the handlebars are pretty comfortable. And the jumbo gem tires also provide pretty great grip and a lot of adjustability in terms of terrain and PSIs that you would run it with. So that's it for my big likes. Let's move on to the dislikes. So the first kind of dislike is that although it does have eyelets in the rear for a rear rack, there's no eyelets in the fork to mount anything cages. So I feel like for some people that would want to use this as a bike packing bike, you're gonna have to use hose clamps on the fork, which is not ideal. And I hope that in future models that they'll add those eyelets so you can mount front rack or anything cages up there. Another dislike is a little bit about aesthetics, but also about material choice. I'm not so hot about the welds on the bike. I mean, they're perfectly functional, but aesthetically, it would be nice if they were a little bit cleaner, or if they offered the WO in a carbon frame. So you'd have smooth junctions, but you'd also lose a ton of weight, making the bike even more playful. I know this is a big ask for any manufacturer to make a dedicated carbon fat bike frame, but given the geometry and how fun it is in aluminum, I would love to see a carbon version. And that's really it for the dislikes. So the way I rode it over the last couple of days is I was able to take it on a couple of trails, but I also used it commuting around town. In terms of trail riding, it was super fun. It was nimble. I wish I had more time to just play with the bike. In terms of commuting, on the days that I rode with it, we had a big snowstorm and things were freezing left and right. And I was super stoked to have a fat bike. Because what would happen is there would be these huge kind of ruts that form with ice and snow in the middle of the road. But by having like the big contact patch of the fat tire, you could kind of safely maneuver over it, just kind of plow on through and float over the rest of the stuff. So I can definitely see if you want to be a 4-season commuter in places that see a lot of snow, a bike like this would be pretty awesome. So I feel like you get a lot of bang for your buck with the Kona WO. You get a fun riding bike, and you also get a decent component set and a good pair of tires for pretty good value when you compare it to other bikes out there on the market. So in terms of being a 4-season commuter, I can definitely see a bike like the Kona WO being an essential bike in your arsenal. It really makes getting around places that get snow, like Missoula, Montana, a lot more doable. The fat tires do give you that extra sense of stability and security and make riding in these crappy conditions more fun. So what do you guys think? Are there any other Kona WO riders out there? How have you guys liked the bike over time? I've only had a few days with it, unfortunately. My initial impressions are really good. If you guys have specific questions about the Kona WO, leave those in the comments below. And if you like the video, you know what to do. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.